Republican candidate for Texas Attorney General Aaron Reitz. Thank you so much and welcome to Eye on Politics.
Happy to be here, Jack. Thanks.
So you're running, and I'm wondering, why is it that did you decide to get into this race? What is the essence of your campaign?
Yeah, look, I most recently came from the presidentially appointed Senate confirmed role as the head of the Office of Legal Policy at DOJ. And when President Trump nominated me back in December, he said, Aaron Reitz is a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution. Now, I've been involved in the legal arena, in the legal political battles of this state for many, many years, and I know that Texans want and Texans deserve exactly that, a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution. That's why I'm in this race, and that's the theme of my campaign.
How do you define MAGA attorney?
Look, I think it's somebody who has the battle scars to prove that he has been litigating, investigating, suing, defending, and appealing on all of the major issues that are helping to make America great again, whether that's border security, election integrity, free speech, religious liberty, unleashing American energy, oil and gas, blocking the predations of the radical left in our schools and in higher education. All of these thematic legal issues I have worked on and been in legal combat in a lawfare environment. And so that's what makes me uniquely qualified for this position. And it's that long record of the legal fights that I've been in and the battle scars that I've sustained fighting them that makes me what President Trump said, which is Aaron Reitz is a true MAGA attorney.
So if you're a Republican voter out there and you're watching this interview and you're watching other interviews of the other Republican candidates, why should they vote for you over the others?
Because I'm the only one in this race with a record that is relevant and battle tested to the position for which we're applying. Article 4, Section 22 of the Texas Constitution says, the Attorney General shall represent the state of Texas in all courts and pleas. This is a legal, executive branch, law enforcement job. It is not a legislative job. My three opponents are legislators, some better than others. I like them. They're nice people. I don't have any beef, personal beef or political beef with my three legislative opponents. But their experience pales in comparison to the experience that I bring to the table, litigating, investigating, suing, defending, and appealing on all of the major issues that Texans really care about. That's what sets me apart. It's why I served in the senior ranks at the Justice Department. It's why I served as Senator Ted Cruz's right-hand man. It's why I was Attorney General Ken Paxton's deputy. It's why Attorney General Paxton unequivocally endorsed me to succeed him. And he didn't mince words when he endorsed me. He didn't say, oh, the other opponents in this race are nice people and would do a serviceable job, but on the margins, I like Aaron the most. No, he said Aaron Reitz is the only qualified candidate in this race and must be the pick for the next Attorney General. In fact, the next day he put out a video and said, Aaron Reitz will make the greatest Attorney General Texas has ever seen. And so it's that record, in addition to my clerking on the Texas Supreme Court for now Chief Justice Jimmy Blacklock, it's my service in the United States Marine Corps as an officer, my time in Afghanistan, serving and leading Marines there. Texans want somebody with that background, with those distinguishing characteristics, with that record, doing the things that qualify a person to apply for this job as the state attorney general, that makes me uniquely suited to serve as the next top lawyer for the state of Texas.
How do you see this primary shaking up?
I think that this is an Aaron Reitz versus Chip Roy battle.
Why?
Because both of us have the momentum, the energy, and we each represent warring factions of the future of our party.
What do you mean by that? I mean, warring factions.
Yeah, look, I think that we're at the battle for the soul not only of our nation, we're at the battle for the soul of our state, but really right now, the powers that be within the Republican Party are vying for what the future of this party is going to look like. Is MAGA and America First, is that a political aberration that's going to die once President Trump leaves office in 2028? Or is this a durable realignment that represents a deep philosophical change, a long-term readjustment in our party? Now, as for me, I, having come from the Trump administration, represent Trump's true MAGA attorney, a warrior for the Constitution, someone who has been litigating, investigating, suing, defending, and appealing on all the major America First, MAGA Trump-aligned issues, versus Chip Roy, who has spent his entire political career opposing the president, railing against MAGA, aligning himself with Liz Cheney, Mike Pence, and all these types of figures. Even as late as December of 2024, President Trump was putting out statements calling for Chip Roy to be primaried and removed from office as a do-nothing, egomaniacal, grandstanding rhino. So Chip and I, the only thing we have in common is our hairstyles. But frankly, we represent very different factions. And on top of that, remember, Chip Roy was the first elected official to call for Attorney General Paxton to be removed from office while I was standing by his side. And he spent the next several years lending his name, image, and likeness to trying to whip up support to oppose Paxton. On the other hand, I served as his deputy and offensive coordinator for 3 years. I got his total and complete endorsement. I think voters want that contrast. So this is a Reitz versus Roy battle, and I think it provides the kind of contrast that voters want to see. And I think ultimately I'm going to prevail because I know where Republican primary voters are. They're with Trump, they're with MAGA, they're with America First, they're with Paxton. That's the banner that I carry, and I think I'm going to prevail.
And why is that important when you're talking about running the Texas Attorney General's office?
Because it shows you where my jurisprudence is. It shows you what my legal philosophy is. Voters can look at my background on the things that I've done, the legal projects, the litigation, the affirmative plaintiff side lawsuits, the investigations I've launched or coordinated, the defensive litigation that I have had to stand and hold the line on, the appellate strategy that I've directed. Folks can look at the jurisprudential issues that I have led on over several years, both at DOJ and as Paxton's deputy and in my other career stops. The issues that I've worked on, folks can look at me and they can know this is the kind of attorney general that Aaron is going to make. They don't have to guess. They don't have to look like at what they're doing with my opponents is they look at their legislative records, lack of a legal record, and they have to infer or guess or hope that whatever they did as legislators is going to somehow shed light on how they're going to be as the state's lawyer. But for me, my record is all out there, litigating, investigating, suing, defending, and appealing. My record is for the whole world to see. You don't have to guess what kind of lawyer on behalf of the state of Texas I'm going to be. I've been doing it for my whole career, and I think that's what gives voters confidence to turn the keys of this office over to me.
What are the cases that you've worked on?
You pick the issue, okay? On election integrity, Attorney General Paxton and I filed Texas v. Pennsylvania to challenge the constitutionality of the election of 2020. I led the election integrity teams in the 2020 cycle and in the 2022 cycle. I led on all the border security matters. I led on several Second Amendment cases. I led on fighting the Biden administration on its war against Texas oil and gas. I have led on free speech issues, religious liberty issues. You pick the issue, and I guarantee you that I have been leading teams, filing cases, filing appeals.
All while at the AG's office?
All while at the AG's office, but it doesn't just stop there. Even when I was Senator Ted Cruz's chief of staff, one of my most important roles was to lead our Senate Judiciary Committee team. And so helping Republicans and that very powerful legal committee in the United States Senate oppose Biden's radical left-wing judicial nominees and to highlight their record and why they're dangerous, and in many cases successfully torpedo some of their nominations. And then it ultimately culminated in my being elevated to the senior-most ranks of the Justice Department, where I, as the senior legal policy advisor to Attorney General Bondi, helped in the spring of 2025 do a complete reset on all of the major things that President Trump ran on, whether it was ending lawfare, whether it was redirecting investigative resources, or channeling litigation resources to advance law and order, to secure the border, to deport illegal aliens, to go against cartels, and to attack human and drug traffickers. All of these things I have been at the very center of. And so my record that is relevant to the job that I'm applying for, which is the state's top law enforcement, litigation, executive branch legal officer, it puts all of my opponents' records to absolute shame. They don't have a record that's relevant to this job, whereas I do. And when I left the Justice Department to launch my bid for Attorney General, for Texas Attorney General Bondi, the Deputy Attorney General, FBI Director, Border Czar Tom Homan, Weaponization Czar, all these top officials in the law and order space in the Trump administration all put out statements of encouragement saying that I was critical to establishing the Make America Safe Again agenda in Washington at the senior ranks of the Justice Department, and that they had full confidence that I was going to continue to advance that agenda, presiding over the largest red state law firm in the country, to really partner with the Trump administration to advance that America First law and order agenda. That's what I'm going to do. And everybody knows that I've got the battle scars to prove that I can do the job.
So what are your top priorities specifically if you were elected?
So I think everything thematically falls under the umbrella of my number one priority is to advance the America First law and order agenda, which requires tremendous partnership with the Trump administration. Remember, the Attorney General serves a 4-year term. That term is going to be broken down into 2 chapters. Chapter 1 will be my first 2 years. When I get sworn in, I will have 2 years with President Trump as the President of the United States. Then, in the middle of my term, there's going to be a presidential election. Now look, I think things are looking very good for a Republican to win that election. But if, God forbid, a Republican loses and we have a Democrat in the White House, what Texas wants, what Texas needs, is to have a state attorney general who is going to oppose the efforts and the agenda of a far left-wing Democratic administration, which we know from experience under both Obama and Biden is going to do everything possible to turn Texas into something that it's not, to force Texas to become something that it doesn't want to be. And they're going to do it by executive fiat. And so you need somebody in this race who is prepared to litigate against a hostile Democratic administration in 2028, if they do take the White House. I hope that they don't. I don't think that they will. But I think that in that first 2 years, that America First law and order agenda is going to manifest itself in several different ways. It's going to be helping the Trump administration expedite its mass deportation operations. It's going to be fighting against the radical sexual left that is going to try to enforce and shove down the throats of K-12 education and in higher education this delusional notion that there are biological sexes other than male and female. We're going to partner with the Trump administration to end DEI in all public institutions. We're going to partner with the Trump administration to make sure that American and Texan oil and gas and energy is unleashed, and that these NGOs, these green organizations cannot thwart the drill baby drill agenda. And so that America First law and order agenda manifests itself in a whole bunch of different ways, and I, as a state attorney general, am going to be responsible for providing a legal environment in which Texans and our values can really flourish.
So if I hear you correctly, it sounds like what Governor Abbott said when he was Attorney General, which was, I wake up, I go into the office, I sue the Obama administration, and then I go home. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it depends
if there's a Democratic president.
There's no question. And in fact, I'm the only one in this race with a credible record actually having done that. When Attorney General Paxton gave me his complete and total endorsement to succeed him, he highlighted, as he's been highlighting in his public statements for years, that I was his offensive coordinator. With his leadership as the AG, I was responsible, under his leadership, to bring the entire docket of Texas v. Biden litigation on all of the major issues. I have been in legal combat. I know what it's like to be in lawfare. My opponents, they just talk about it. They say, trust me, I'm going to do a good job. But they have no record that gives voters any confidence that they're going to know what they're doing, that they even know what targets to go after, that they know how to launch an investigation. They don't know appellate strategy. They don't know defensive litigation strategy. I'm the only one in this race who has the qualifications for the job under Article 4, Section 22, which says the Attorney General shall represent the state of Texas in all courts and pleas. It is a legal, executive branch, law enforcement job. I'm the only one with the credentials, background, and battle scars to give Texans confidence that I'm the guy for the job.
We've seen a lot of shootings lately. We had the ICE shooting in Dallas. We had the church shooting in Michigan.
Yes.
We've had the assassination attempt on President Trump when he was running. The assassination of Charlie Kirk, the assassination of Minnesota State Senator and her husband. Yeah. And I mean, you know, church shootings, school shootings, etc. What's the solution to preventing this?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is that 9 out of the 10 of the examples you just listed are coming from uniquely left-wing political activists who have been radicalized by a Democratic Party and liberal regime that has radicalized since the left launched their cultural revolution in the 60s. We are now living 60 years later, now bearing the fruits of radical left-wing ideology, having captured all of the main levers of cultural, economic, technological, educational powers. Now, these individuals that have committed these atrocities, 9 out of the 10 of those that you listed, we can keep going if you wanted to, these are not lone wolves. These are not just random aberrations of people who want to commit political violence. These are people who were groomed, born, bred, encouraged, aided, abetted, nudged, and given the intellectual framework to commit left-wing political acts of violence. And so when I'm Attorney General, I'm going to muster all of the powers, constitutional, statutory, regulatory, and under common law, to smoke out the militant and violent left that has taken root in this state. And make no mistake, this is not somehow a foreign phenomenon to Texas either. These kinds of sympathies are happening, and these ideologies are all over the state. When I'm AG, I'm going to partner with the FBI under Kash Patel, with the DOJ under Attorney General Bondi, with the Trump administration, to bring the full force of federal and state law to investigate institutions wherever they may be found. And I'm going to find those who have aided and abetted, encouraged, funded, and excused the sort of violent left-wing activists that want increasingly to commit acts of political violence against uniquely right-wing targets or members who represent the Trump administration or conservative political philosophies. This is a left-wing Democratic problem. And when I'm Attorney General, I am going to come after you, I'm going to find you, and I'm going to hold you accountable. That's exactly what I'm going to do as Attorney General.
And are you going to keep a wide enough, cast a wide enough net to find people who may feel maybe they're not on the left, maybe they are either on the right, or maybe they're not ideologically bent at all?
Of course, yeah, no, look, of course we're going to keep a wide enough net. We don't want political violence of any sort. And everybody knows the image of Lady Justice who has blindfolds on. And so even though I describe accurately that this is a uniquely left-wing political phenomenon of political violence on the left, we have to be smart about where we devote our law enforcement and investigatory and prosecutorial resources. And right now we know that the threats are coming primarily from one side of the political aisle. I don't have unlimited resources. And so yes, I don't want to see political violence on either side of the aisle. But right now we're living in a regime where that violence is uniquely coming from the left. In the same way that police departments right here where we're talking in Dallas know where the crime-heavy areas of town are, and so they devote law enforcement resources to those sides of town. We know where the foreign threats are abroad, and so the United States military devotes its military and combat resources towards those regions. And so I, as the state's top law enforcement and legal officer, am not stupid. I know where the threats are coming from. I'm going to focus my energies on the sources of those threats, and I'm going to devote my efforts accordingly. Does that mean that we're going to exclude other sources of political violence? No, it doesn't. But I'm not stupid, and I'm not going to believe the Democratic establishment when it tells me to not believe my lying eyes. We all know where the violence is coming from, and we know where to go to smoke them out and hold them accountable. That's what I'm going to do.
Is Texas doing a good enough job of keeping guns out of the wrong people's hands?
You know, look, I think that I believe in a very robust reading of the Second Amendment. I believe that human beings have a natural God-given right to keep and to bear arms. That natural right to use the tools necessary to protect yourself, your family, and your property is God-given and ultimately memorialized in writing in the Second Amendment. So my view of the Second Amendment is very robust. I look with a tremendously skeptical eye at any regulations or laws or judicial holdings that purport to invade or infringe upon that natural God-given right that is then memorialized in writing in the Second Amendment. Is Texas doing a great job? I think Texas is a bastion of Second Amendment liberty. But there are no doubt individuals out there that have a mental illness or things of that nature. And look, I don't want to see deranged, mentally sick, transgender philosophy people get their hands on guns and start shooting up people because they were encouraged on some fringe Discord server to go kill people who are on the right that represent a threat to their existence. But I think that the solution to making sure that the wrong people don't get guns is making sure that we have a culture of robust Second Amendment where law-abiding citizens are free to carry as the Second Amendment grants them the right to be able to do so, and God has given them that natural right to do it. And so I want to see Texans who are lawful, law-abiding citizens who treat their carrying very seriously and can take out threats as they may arise as we go about our day-to-day lives.
As far as, I mean, you mentioned the transgender, you mentioned mental illness, et cetera. And I'm just wondering, as far as people who have a mental illness, so how do you keep, because you mentioned it, so how do you keep guns out of their hands, okay? What's the solution there?
Look, what I'll tell you is I'm applying to be the state's top lawyer. I have a legal interpretation of the application and scope of the Second Amendment. It is one that I just said is exceptionally robust. To the extent that there are tweaks that the legislature wants to make and gun regulations, they are free to attempt to pass regulations that may or may not infringe upon Texans' law-abiding Second Amendment rights. It is my job to vindicate Texans' Second Amendment rights in court. If there are lawful instances where a person with a deep mental illness is somehow statutorily or by order of a court not authorized to carry a firearm because he is a threat to himself or to others, I would look at that as a case-by-case basis. But remember, my philosophy on the Second Amendment is one in which God has imbued individuals with the inalienable natural right to keep and to bear arms to keep themselves, their family, their loved ones, and their property safe. And it is the exception rather than the rule that there are some individuals who may or may not, under federal and state law, be able to carry. But I look at those regulations and those restrictions with a tremendous amount of scrutiny. To the extent that there are reforms that people want to go through, that's the legislature's job. I'm applying to be the state's top lawyer, and I have a very robust interpretation of the Second Amendment. I have litigated Second Amendment cases in court. Folks can look at my record and see the legal positions I've taken on the Second Amendment, both offensively, defensively, and on appeals. And so I'll leave it at that, you know, look, are there things that we can do to keep our communities safer? Yes, but in my mind, that begins with a more robust firearms culture than a more restricted firearms culture.
Anything else you'd like to say?
Look, I would just tell Texans that we haven't had to critically examine who our next top state lawyer is for over a decade. Attorney General Paxton has served our state effectively and faithfully for over a decade. This is the first time we've had a very top statewide elected office open in over a decade. And so Texans are looking very critically about who the best person is to succeed Attorney General Paxton. Under Article 4, Section 22, it's very clear what this job is. It is a legal, executive branch, law enforcement job. I'm the only candidate in this race with a robust record litigating, investigating, suing, defending, and appealing on all of the major issues that Texans and your listeners care about. The stakes are too high to turn the keys of this mission-critical office over to somebody who needs on-the-job training or training wheels or somebody who doesn't have a legal record. I do. It's why President Trump said, I'm a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution. And so what I would say is that if President Trump put his trust in me, if Senator Cruz put his trust in me to serve as his chief, if Attorney General Paxton put his trust in me to serve as his deputy and get his complete and total endorsement, if the Chief Justice of the Texas Supreme Court entrusted me to serve as his inaugural law clerk, if our countrymen entrusted me to serve in uniform and carry a gun to fight against foreign enemies to the United States Constitution. My ask to Texans is to put their trust in me to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, as the next Attorney General of Texas.
Aaron Reitz, Republican candidate for Texas Attorney General. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jack.
We appreciate it.